Or do
No,
we have
good.
to
I'm
babysit
not.
you?
I'm not co-hosting. I'm just here as a happy client of Grifos. I'm good.
So Frank, do we have to
It's
babysit
all
you,
Chris.
Tony?
Yeah.
Can you do it? Can you let
What, you
people
mean allow people in? Let people in?
No, when Chris is ready.
I'm ready whenever you want.
Tony,
Ready?
you
Okay,
want to
let's
host
do it. Yeah, let him in. Frank,
Let
it's
him-
the show right
Tony,
now.
you're
I'm gonna
officially
give him-
managing it. You're good.
Right here.
I started it already.
Okay. All right, here we go. Let him in.
Well, we want to. All right, let's
Good
get
luck, Tony. He's gonna really do it.
No, what do you mean do it? My buddy's saying that he's trying to get in to the room there. Does he opening it up so far, or nobody's joining?
Yeah, we open it up. We'll open it up then. It's open.
There you
Here
go.
we go.
There's
Here we go.
oh, there's Dave.
There's
There
Dave.
we go. Yeah, there we go. Well, we want to welcome you all. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, long time. How
There's
you all
Dave,
doing?
and there's Will, and
Hey, Larry.
and Gina, and Stan, and Franklin fiddled his pens, and Marky Baby Devil Play.
Hey,
And
Frank.
there's Steve down here.
Nice.
Marky, wave your hand, Mark. That's
Hey,
Frank's
Mark,
little
yes.
brother. That's Frank's little baby brother, little
Yeah.
bambino.
Dave here
Yes,
too. Penultimate
yes,
Dave. Hey.
yeah.
Hey, Frank. How you doing?
Right?
And there's
Frank.
Mr. Dave, Mr. Wonderful Dave, the wonderful world of Dave. How you doing, my main man, Dave? Hey, send me a little
Hey,
bit of
Larry.
England.
How you doing?
This is Psycho Zoom. Welcome to the jungle, my
We
friend.
we just did 3 hours just
We
before
just did
this.
3 hours, yeah.
So if I start speaking in an English accent, you'll know what's going on. Welcome everybody to this wonderful day. I just want to say it's what a great thing to be here with Larry and all of you. When Larry was talking to me once before about who we could get, he said, I'm trying to always find new people to represent the product. And, you know, he's done a great job. He's gotten some people like luxury brands and some, and he's going to have Joost Applebaum on here and the gal from Pen Boutique and
Matt
Lisa.
McCarter. Matt
Lisa,
McCarter.
I mean, he's been through a lot of people that have had on there. And I mentioned that I was good friends with a gentleman that I met at the St. Louis Pen Show, and he represents a great product. And I said, well, we got to get in touch with Chris Stevens, and I somehow hooked him up, and he sent Larry one of his pens, and Larry reviewed it, did a great job, by the way, and now we've got Chris Stevens all the way from St. Louis, Missouri, here on the chat, and he's going to talk about his product, and I'm really impressed with him, and I hope you all enjoy. Chris Stevens, say hi to everybody.
Hello. Sorry that you're not seeing my face, but I have a remote cam set up so I can show you pens with much better clarity.
That's
And
fine.
so-
Okay, Chris, welcome to the show, and the show is yours, buddy. Take it away.
Thanks, Larry. Thank you, Tony, both of you for arranging this, connecting Larry. May appreciate it. Frank also, I know, was involved on that. And so all friends, one of the great things about the pen hobby and business is the friends we make. I see there's a few Grifos clients in the audience too. So that's kind of nice that maybe we'll have some perspective from them, given that they've been using the product. And I know that Larry did a review, which hopefully you've seen, of one of the pens, and we'll talk a little bit about that. What I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about the company, and while I'm doing it, I'm going to show you some pictures and I'm going to show you some pens. And so in doing so, hopefully it'll give you a little bit better experience, even though we're remote and doing this via computer. So right now, Larry, if it's okay, would you mind, I need to have you enable me to share the screen. It's all you got to do. The simplest way to do it would be just make me a co-host. Like if you go to the little 3 dots above my screen, then it'll just give me those permissions, and you don't have to go back in and reset all the settings.
You're done.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So what I want to do is show you some photos, and hang on just a second here as I switch to the screen sharing, and then I want to show you some photos. And as I do so, we'll talk a little bit about the pens that are depicted. Our specialty is working in precious metal. And in order to understand that, you have to understand a little bit about the history of the company. And so I'd like to share a little of that with you. owner of the company, Maurizio, started out his career as a teenager. He was in the apprenticeship program to join the Goldsmiths Guild. Italy is still governed by, in some occupations, a guild system that dates back to the Middle Ages. And working in precious metals, you have to be a member of the guild to do so. And so he did his apprenticeship and learned the trade of silver and goldsmithing. And then he lived in Settimo Torinese, though, right outside of Turin. And if you follow Italian pen brands, Aurora, for example, that is the historic city of the pen manufacturers. Many of them were sort of designated areas. Industries in Italy were sort of distributed to, give work opportunity throughout the country. And Turin got the pen making industry traditionally. I know we have companies, Delta and its successors, and Stipula, are located in other cities. But the traditional city of pen making is Turin, specifically Settimo Torinese. Aurora is still located there today. Well, our owner went to work at the pen factory and learned to make pens working there. At some point down the road, he decided he wanted to merge his skill of pen making along with the craft of silversmithing. And he started his own company, which the official name of the company is Aurum Vallis. And Grifos was originally one of our pen lines. He then changed the branding to name the company Grifos for branding purposes. And I'd kind of like to share with you a brief thing about the history of the brand itself. When I had the other screen up, you saw the logo of the company, and I know that Larry featured it in his review. It also appears on the lid of the box that he had in his hand. The logo is two griffins that are fighting, and of course they're fighting over a pen nib in this case. But the logo is actually a line drawing of a mosaic, a bit of mosaic work. When the owner was in middle school or junior high, his teacher was friends with a fellow who was works in the contracting business, and they were doing some remodeling work on a church in his town. And the friend called his teacher and said, "Hey, bring the kids over here. I want to show them something before we have to call the archaeologists in." What happened was they inadvertently unearthed Roman ruins. And his teacher brought the kids over, and they were the first people since 1003 AD to see, when the church was built, to see this bit of Roman mosaics. And there was a large mosaic work in the floor of two griffins fighting, and that kind of stuck with him. And so when he ended up developing the brand and creating the logo, that it was that experience that he kept in mind. And from that also comes the name of one of our pen lines, which the pen that Larry reviewed comes from that line, which is Alius ex Alio. Many of the pens either have an Italian name or a Latin name, the Latin, of course, being a nod to the Roman Empire. Alius ex Alio in Latin means from one to the other. And so his thought was, okay, symbolically, that the griffins that were in that Roman mosaic, it was a Roman temple that got built over and turned into a Christian church, which was very common with Roman ruins. And the idea of it was sort of reusing, recycling, but also shifting from one point of view to another. And so he's kind of kept that mentality of from one to the other, and also thought of pen and the pens and craftsmanship and handwriting as one of the ways that we still maintain that kind of human contact from one to the other. And so that's sort of in the spirit of the work and in the brand. It's why many of the names have Latin in them, or they're inspired by something from history or something cultural. The pen you're looking at right now, for instance, has a lotus flower in it, which, if you know anything about yoga or about Eastern culture, or many, many cultures have taken the lotus flower in, but it's a symbol of wellness and health and well-being. And this particular pen was originally designed for the Indian market. We have a fellow that distributes there, and I supply him. And we did this pen as a custom for that market. Well, we then ended up bringing it in over here. It's a beautiful pen, and it sort of shows off some of the craftsmanship that we like to specialize in. So for starters, I mentioned that Maurizio originally trained as a goldsmith, silversmith. All of our pens are made of solid sterling. Now, we do make some in solid gold too, but at $2,000 an ounce for gold, you recognize the pens get sort of expensive. We have a pen in solid gold that costs $12,000. We don't sell many of them, as you can imagine. Silver, on the other hand, has been hovering in the upper 20s per ounce. And so while the recent run up in silver, thanks to our younger friends trading on the Robinhood platform, buying and selling GameStop stock, they ran the price of silver up a few months ago too. And so we sometimes have, we're subject to the market fluctuations of silver, but that neither here nor there. We use solid silver in the pens, and they are all engraved by hand. And when I say by hand, I mean they use a manual technique is used. This is not a CAD machine. It's not done it's not milled into the pen barrel. It's called guilloche engraving, which is a technique that was developed it was developed very, very long ago, but became very popular in the late 19th century, early 20th century in watchmaking and in pen making. In watchmaking, the faces of watches have a rounded engraving design. Those are done on what's called a rose engine. And pens are done on what's called a line engine or a line engraver. It's operated by hand. The left hand turns a crank to move the pen barrel vertically. The right hand pushes on a cutter with the right thumb as the pen moves vertically to cut those patterns in it. And then the cutter itself follows a jig that you create in advance to create a wave or a swirl or some other pattern. And so the thumb has to come on and off the engraving. So in this one, if you look at the area where the lotus flower is, anything that's not engraved, as he comes up the barrel with the engraver moving in a zigzag, he then has to lift his thumb off right here while the pen moves up to here, and then put it back down to continue on. Over here, he's got to do that, lift up, come down and run it straight, lift up, come down and run it straight again, lift up. You see how tedious it can be. And this is all done, and then the pen rotates by a degree or two so that he can move to the next line and the next line. Some of our pens take 720 passes on the machine because it does an engraving for each of 360 degrees. So each degree all the way around the barrel, and then a second cut all the way around to make them deeper. And so if you make one mistake, the whole thing goes back to be melted down and turned into a different pen barrel, because mistakes stick out like a sore thumb. And so it really is a craft that goes back in time and is a nod to the history of pen making. The machine that we own belonged to Parker Pen Company in the 1930s. And so we think it's kind of fun that we're actually using a pen that belonged to one of our important, historically important pen making companies. Another thing that this pen shows off is some of the other work that we do to kind of combine modern and ancient techniques. So in this case, we've cut all the way through the silver and put an under barrel in this as a substrate for the silver itself. This, you may recognize it if you're familiar with the Dolce Vita pen. If you look at my screen, which should be up in your upper right-hand corner, I think you can see it. There's a Dolce Vita from my personal collection. You recognize the acrylic. There's one major acrylic manufacturer in Italy. They're located in Tuscany. It's where Delta gets their acrylic. It's where all the major Italian pen makers get their acrylic. It's the same acrylic as the Dolce Vita, but it makes for a fantastic, we make pens out of that. We do a full barrel of it, but it makes for a fantastic backing for this lotus flower. Anyway, in that you see some of the basic elements of the work we do. We also do all of our nibs in-house. Larry was kind enough in the review to speak about the merits of Bach nibs. I like them. I use Jovo nibs. I really like the way Bach nibs write. They have a bad reputation, unfortunately. I can tell you that the reputation comes from sort of two different places. One, nibs that are not well tuned, because sometimes the quality control isn't the best. So we tune all of our nibs before they leave. We also do all of our own sizing. So every nib we buy the nibs in the thousands, and then we put every single one of them on a micrometer to measure the point width, and then we grade them medium, fine, broad, etc. And we often find things that had been misgraded. We buy the nibs in bulk, unengraved, because we want to put our logo on them rather than box logo. And we do the engraving of all of our stuff. So our logo is engraved on that nib that you see in the picture, along with the M for medium. The other place that the Bach reputation comes from the maker community, and this is a well-earned reputation. Bach requires purchase of a minimum of 5,000 of any point size at a time. And so if you want to stock Bach, if you want to use Bach stainless steel nibs in your pens, and you want to make them available in extra fine, medium, and broad, you need to buy 20,000 nibs. As you can imagine, for small makers, that's an impossibility. So in that sense, Jovos have been made much more widely available by the maker community, and I get it. I mean, it's a matter of economics. What we do, though, we wanted to get to solve that problem, and so we created a consortium of Italian companies, and we buy the nibs in that quantity in bulk, but we do it as a collective, as a consortium, rather than one individual. And so the small makers get access to the nibs, including us, because we can't buy them 20,000 at a time. And that's the way we've been able to do it. And I've been trying to pay it forward by opening that up to some of our American makers. Frank, if you don't mind me saying, Frank, his in-house nibs, his Federalist Pens nibs come from us. We do the engraving for him on the Bach nibs, and that's what makes it affordable for him to be able to do the Bach in the quantity he needs to do it. And there are several makers that we supply, makers you've heard of, but I don't have their permission to mention their source on their nibs. So unfortunately, I won't be saying who they are today. If any of them are in the audience, they can speak up. That is sort of a beginning overview. Oh, there's Frank. You did just type that in. Thank you. I'm going to go through some other pens and I'll bring up a few more things about the history of the pens and about the company, because I find it interesting, and I think most of the pen collectors I've met enjoy having a story behind the pens that they own. So I'd like to tell some of those stories. This is just a different photo of the lotus flower. I wanted to tell you something about it too. When we do an engraving in the barrel like that, we'll do it any way a customer wants, if they're willing to wait for it, for the engraving to be done. But when we do them for stock, you'll notice in that pen that if you put the cap on it, and here's the pen in person, if you put the cap on it, some people will say to me, well, that engraving is upside down. And if you think of a pen as something to sit in a stand to look at, then yes, this is upside down. But we want these to be working instruments too, but we like to still show off the artistry. So now imagine having it in your hand, and you'll notice that the nib is not perfectly lined up with the lotus flower. That's by design. So this pen was made for a right-hander. And when you put this pen in your right hand and hold it in the writing position, the logo, the engraving is right side up. So you and anybody else near you is looking at the artistry of the pen while it's being used, which is its intended purpose. We do have some customers, though, that prefer it the other way. They're buying it as a collector, and we certainly are happy to turn the engraving 180 degrees, because we also are happy to do custom work, semi-custom work, etc. So let's look at some more pens. Showing off more of the engraving and some inspiration. So this pen is in solid sterling. Anytime you see one of our pens, the metal is solid sterling silver. In this case, it's gold plated with 18 karat gold. So it's vermeil, technically. The engraving on this one, again, done with the guilloche cutter, but this is this chessboard pattern that is just, I think it's beautifully refined. If I just kind of zoom in on it, you can really see the level of work. And when you imagine that thumb going in to press each cut as it goes up the line, you begin to see the skill and the dedication of the artist. While I'm zoomed in, I want to spend a little time here. If you look at this, this is an Italian acrylic barrel, and the barrel has then been hand engraved with a tree that is inspired by the Gustav Klimt painting Tree of Life. So this pen has the tree of life as seen by the painter Gustav Klimt. If you don't know Klimt, you've seen his painting The Scream before, one of the most famous modern art paintings in existence. What we've been experimenting with is old and new techniques. So this is a technique that was originally developed in the Middle Ages by manuscript illuminators. So imagine you're the person who is handed a book with a leather cover and parchment pages that have all of the text written in them, and they've got all the margin space open, and you're the person that decorates all of the margins and the cover itself. That's done by an embossing technique. So they would emboss the parchment paper before laying gold leaf and color into it, and the cover itself would be embossed before leafed and tinted. So we decided to take that concept and put it into a modern material. So this is Italian acrylic that we've then engraved, and you can see the depth when you kind of look at it close. And then we lay gold leaf into the engraving itself, and then lacquer over and polish. It's got 7 or 8 coats of lacquer on there. I don't remember specifically which, to protect it. But so it's showing off the engraving technique, paying homage to an artist, a modern artist, as well as an ancient technique that originated in Italy. And the rest of the pen. It's really a beautiful pen. We make this one in a couple colors. This is the standard color we make it in. And it also comes with a blue acrylic, and it comes with a green acrylic, and then we have different variations on the color scheme of the plating and the engraving. Regarding engraving, Larry spoke along with Mr. Announcer. They spoke at length about the pattern of the engraving on the buffalo horn pen. This is the ballpoint version, and I just wanted to show that to show you that we do indeed make standard sized ballpoints with the same techniques. It actually makes it even more difficult and tedious to do because you're working on a smaller canvas. And then in the fountain pen, we also do roller balls at the fountain pen size, but this is that pen and fountain pen size. This one we call the Gaudi, which is inspired by the cathedral in Barcelona by the architect Gaudi, the La Sagrada Familia Cathedral. And if you look at any of Gaudi's architecture, you'll see the twisted motif throughout it. Interestingly enough, Gaudi used the divine ratio or the divine proportion, golden ratio, sometimes known as in mathematics, to create the pattern for the twist. It's why Visconti calls their pen the Divina. Divina is Italian for divine. If you can think, you've probably seen before the Visconti pen that has the twisted pattern, the twisted ribs that go around the pen. It's formed using, when you're making the twist, you use the same mathematical formula to create the twist. Any case, this one is done on that line engraver, but imagine when you're engraving, the pen is not twisting. If you were doing it on a CAD operated machine, the pen would twist with the engraving tool. In this case, the pen moves on a straight line, and so the engraving has to accommodate for the twist and come off the cutting and back on the cutting as you go down to create that twist. This is the pen that takes the 720 passes. And I think it's just a stunning bit of artwork. The pen that Larry reviewed had a barrel made of water buffalo horn, and then the section and cap were done with this pattern. It has a different clip and band on it. But we do this in the full pen that we call the Gaudi. And to show you this kind of custom work we're also doing, and this idea of having a modern feel to some of our work, we've been experimenting with other finishes. So I saw in the recent Pen World magazine some pens that just got released that have a guilloche engraving on them, and then they're lacquered over the guilloche engraving to give it color. You're going to have to forgive me because right now I'm blanking on who the manufacturer of the pen was. If anybody remembers, feel free to say so, but it's in the current Pen World. And what they do is fill it with lacquer which then covers the engraving, protects it, and gives it color. We've actually for a couple years been doing the same thing, but we don't do it with lacquer. We do it with a modern material. This is that same pen treated. We do it in a variety of colors. There's 3 or 4 dozen colors that we can do this in. It's a nano ceramic coating. And so we've been trying to experiment with modern materials. Nanoceramic materials were created for the aerospace industry to make heat shields. It is super hard, but when you do it at the nanotechnology level, you're creating a coating that is a micron or so, 2 microns thick. And so it's super hard, which protects the pen from scratches or any other damage. It doesn't flake off. It's basically fused into the metal, but it remains at that and so you can still see the silver through, in this case, this aqua color. You can still see the silver through the nanoceramic coating. We did this one as a special for the St. Louis Pen Show for 2020 in a purple. I did a couple prototypes. This was one of them, and I did one in pink. The pink one sold at the Dallas Pen Show to the daughter of a Grifos collector. And this one actually belongs to now the head of the music program at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. So it's a one of a kind, but we do stuff like this at times as specials for the shows. So this was done as a special for the Dallas Pen Show in 2019. Look at some other things. This is again that technique of engraving into the acrylic. This pen we call the Fiorentina, which in Italian means Florentine. The fleur de lis is the symbol of the city of Florence. Interestingly enough, I sell these at Pen Show. Every Pen Show I sell probably 2 of these on average. And they always go to someone who either loves Florence, Italy, or someone who lives in New Orleans, St. Louis, Louisville, Kentucky, all these cities that have the fleur de lis as the symbol of the city. It seems to have gotten a little bit of support that way. It was created this way as a tribute to both Florence and St. Louis, given we have the Italian connection where we're manufactured. We have the St. Louis connection here. It is engraved into the blue acrylic, but that blue is it's hard to see in this one unless you look at this edge along here. The blue has a mother of pearl effect when you twirl it. I'm going to show you that on the camera. As I twirl this, you see the mother of pearl effect that kind of shimmers, and it's just a beautiful acrylic. And so we do that as the base material and then lay the gold leaf. And in this case, it's rose gold. We lay the rose gold leaf into the engravings and then lacquer the whole thing. And of course, this pen is plated in 18 karat gold. And then it is, it's first engraved and then plated in 18 karat gold. But as you'll see, sometimes we vary the patterns on the various pens. So the one pictured has the twist pattern, like I just showed. The one I have in my hand has a pattern that we call the Pompeii pattern. Actually, it's inspired by columns, Roman columns. A couple of other things to show, and then we'll talk. We do special editions. This is solid sterling that we have then treated in an acid bath to oxidize it this gray color. It's an acid technique that's used in Italy in the jewelry industry to create this charcoal colored silver, but we treat it in the acid bath first and then engrave it. So we're engraving through the oxidation so you can then get the bright silver color. This pen is a tribute to Dante Alighieri. This year is the 700th year anniversary of the death of Dante. We wanted to do a Dante tribute for that, but we ended up releasing it early because we thought it was a perfect tribute to those who were lost to the COVID epidemic. And so we released it last May, and as a limited edition, limited to 100 fountain pens and 100 roller balls. And the pen has the bust of Dante engraved in it. It has this star, which is the symbol of Italy. It's also an image of the North Star. It has a laurel leaf motif, which echoes the laurel leaf crown of Dante himself. And then on the barrel of the pen, you get another version of the star here, along with the serial number. On the back of the grip is a fleur de lis as a reference to St. Louis. And on the barrel of the pen, again, we have the North Star. We have all these other stars. This was inspired by a 19th century painting by Gustave Doré, who was a very famous illustrator of Dante's Inferno, Dante's Divine Comedy. And it's taken from inspired by his illustration for Canto 34 of the Divine Comedy. There's a famous line in there, and we inscribed the line on the pen, which is "Quindi uscimo a riveder le stelle," therefore we exit to see the stars again. And it's referring to the moment when Dante and Virgil exit hell and see the stars again. And we thought that that was a rather fitting sentiment for the COVID pandemic and us trying to come back out of the pandemic back into our existence. And so we thought the pen was appropriate, so we released it early with this inscription on it. And we donated all the profits to COVID relief efforts in Northern Italy and in St. Louis. At the time we were doing it was when Northern Italy was just hammered by the pandemic, and they were seeing for that area a staggering number of deaths. So we'd sent COVID relief funds to them. And in St. Louis, I picked the St. Louis Area Food Bank, which was giving out 30,000 meals a month at the height of the quarantine time. And they're now predicting that's going to go back up. So it was a way that we could give back while also promoting one of our ability to do these limited edition pens. This is just another view of the same pen. You see also the fleur-de-lis right there under the cap. I mean, under the clip. I think this is my last image. It is. Okay, so finally, this pen is made from bog oak. And actually, I have a few more images to come up, but I can do them in a different way. This pen is made from bog oak. If you're not familiar with bog oak, it is harvested from oak trees that are underneath peat bogs in Eastern Europe and in Ireland. Those bogs cover ancient forests. And in those forests were trees of various sorts. Well, oak trees, under the moisture and acidity and pressure of the bog, it's wood that it's on its way to becoming petrified. So it's, in Italian, they call it fossilized wood. It's not fully petrified, but it's not fully wood. It's somewhere in between the two. The longer it's in the peat bog under those circumstances, the darker the wood gets. So we have not treated this with any coloration, but it's very black. I have a different one here that I can show you. So a different piece of wood, same idea. You get that dark color. But yet, if you know wood, if you look at the grain, you see that it's indeed oak. It's a beautiful material. It's very warm in the hand. It's very hard to work with. So turning it into a pen barrel, there's a high waste factor in the work on it because the wood will split when it's being turned if any mistake is made on the lathe. We carbon date the wood that we use. We work with a lab in the Ukraine, of all places. And we give the carbon dating certificate to the owner of the pen, which is kind of a fun collector thing. Most of the wood that we've been working with is between 5,600 and 6,000 years old. If you ever see bog oak, you'll find it on eBay. Pen makers use it. It's used in other hobbies. Usually it'll be dark tan in color or dark, it'll get into brown, but not this black. And if you look closely at the description of those, usually the age of that wood is 1,500 years, 2,000 years. So you see the idea that the longer it's in that setting, the darker. But it speaks to another value that our company holds, and that is sustainable production of product. So any wood that we use bog oak, briar root, and olive wood, as well as grapevine wood from Vitis vinifera, which is the wine producing grape. We only use woods that are coming from dead trees. And so in the case of bog oak, obviously it's sitting underneath a peat bog. And so we're working with suppliers of wood who harvest it from trees that have already died rather than killing the tree for its wood. Some of the wood we use is just beautifully figured. Briar root is popular in Italy because it's used in the pipe making industry. Pipe smokers know that wood quite well. It makes a fantastic material in the hand for a pen barrel. And so that speaks to our efforts at sustainability. I'm going to talk about that in a moment with some other materials. Another thing we do with the silver, I mentioned the gold plating. This one's also plated, which is why it's sort of gray in color or gunmetal in color. It's plated with something called ruthenium. In the Italian jewelry industry, they refer to that as black gold. It's 18 karat ruthenium plating. and it just gives it that color. So again, solid sterling, but plated with ruthenium for the cosmetic effect. So what I'd like to do is, in a moment, I'll show you some more images. Also, actually, let me do something else really quickly. The website, we have two sites. One is the Italian site, one's our American site. So the American site, the web address is grifos-pens.us. Frank, my friend, would you mind doing me a favor and just typing that web address into the chat box for me? Grifos-pens.us, just so people have it.
No problem.
And since I just pulled up the chat to see that, Pen Ultimate Dave, what size nibs do these pens have? They're number 6 Bach nibs, and we only work with the number 6. Once in a while, we do a special run of something that's a little larger, and we'll put in a bigger nib, but we don't like to work with the number 5s. They just look really small in our pens.
Yeah.
So we do the number 6s, and then in terms of nib size, our regular stock is available in extra fine, fine, medium, and broad. They, of course, you know, I know Frank has been in the nibs we supply him. He's been sending for grinding, and we obviously can provide that service too. But I'll be frank, if I have to send it out for grinding in order to turn it into a special stub or architect nib or something, and then have it shipped back to me in order to put in a pen to send to you, I would be sending it to the same grinders that you guys would be sending it to. So I usually tell people, if you want a special grind on the nib, you're sort of better off communicating directly with the Nibmeister yourself. But I'm happy to supply the service. But anyway, number 6 Bach, extra fine through broad are the standards. Okay, just on the web page, www.grifos-pens.us, and the Italian site is .it. I have a link to it right at the top of the main page. You'll see just many of the pens, and I haven't talked about dollars yet at all. I know that Larry was kind to reference the price in the review. We think our pens, for what you get, are affordable. I know that for some people, the concept of $250 for a fountain pen is not affordable, and I'm certainly empathetic to that fact. Our pens start at $100, and our most, I mean, apart from the solid gold pen, our most expensive standard stock pen is $300. That's with a stainless steel Bach nib. If you add, if you put a Bach gold nib in it, we use the 18 carats, and that adds $200 to the price. But it's interesting, given the cost of gold. I mean, unless you really, really want a gold nib, I've become sort of indifferent to the gold nibs. I used to only want gold nibs. And the thing that's made me a bit indifferent to them is the stainless steels have improved so much that the feedback they give to me is not like the stainless steel nibs of old. Is it gold? No, it's not the same as gold, but it's really close. But when I'm looking at a $200 or $250 pen, I'm doubling the price for it to have a gold nib. That's kind of the decision that helps me make it or not make it. Just to show you, I'll show you a couple of other things on the site. This pen has an engraving pattern that's inspired by a city skyline. And again, done on the guilloche machine, but you get this geometric pattern that then, pardon me, you get the geometric pattern that then has a very fine line engraved underneath it too. So the engraver had to do the fine lines and then come off the engraver for this block and then come back on. But to catch that angle on the block, imagine how on every single stroke of the guilloche cutter, how attentive he has to be. It's a really pretty pen, and we do that in a couple of versions. This is one of the olive wood pens, so we always try to use very heavily figured wood when we can. But I mentioned the idea of sustainability, so I wanted to talk about this pen as well as a couple of others. We work in leather. We do pens that have ostrich hide and lizard and various fish, believe it or not. And shark skin and stingray hide. Those are our current carryings. We can work in cowhide, but it just doesn't seem, I mean, we want to do something different. This one is made with a fish hide called wolffish. Wolffish is a prehistoric deep sea fish that makes its home on the North Atlantic. So the American Atlantic coast, it is a protected species, not endangered. In Iceland, however, it is actually overpopulated and it is a staple of the Icelandic diet. And we work with a tannery in Iceland. And so to continue our sustainability efforts, all of our leather materials, we source from tanneries that work with the food production industry. So all of the skins that we use are skins that were going to be thrown away in food production process. And so then the tannery acquires them from, in a collaboration with the food producers. So for instance, this is commercially caught in the wild in Iceland, but we also do salmon, which is produced by fish farms in Iceland. And this tannery works only with the sustainable producers of the skins, and they tan them. By the way, that tannery is also 100% run on renewable energy. We really like our collaboration with them. This is what a wolffish looks like, by the way. They have a prehistoric kind of a demeanor. You see in this one on the right is one of our salmon pens, and underneath here, these are both salmon. This is shark, and these are both stingray. Just to give you a little bit of a close-up of some of that material under my camera, this is actually salmon hide, but on this one we've impregnated it with silver, so it has silver leaf, silver flake embedded in the scales of the salmon. In this case, the skin was dyed black. This pen has a chessboard pattern engraved in it. It's really pretty. This one is stingray hide. This only cap only. The rest of this pen is engraved guilloche, but we do these in full stingray too, in a variety of colors. We do one in shark skin. I mentioned ostrich. Jeannie, who's logged into this meetup, has our ostrich hide pen. The stingray hide is just a marvelous material. This particular part of the skin that's on this pen is used to make traditional Japanese samurai sword handles, the grips on the handle, because it has a texture to it, but it's luminescent. You see the shine. There's another part of the skin that we use where the outer skin has been removed and it reveals what's in those little bubbles. The Italians refer to those little bubbles as bone bubbles because what they are is they are pores of the animal's skin that has taken in mineral deposits from the ocean water. And the animal's natural body chemistry hardens those in the same way that an oyster hardens a grain of sand into a pearl. And they call these bone bubbles because they really look almost like bone, but to me, it looks more like pearl. And when you turn it under the light, they're brilliant. And we use that skin on our blue, green, and gray ones. On the black ones, we use this part of the skin for the caps. And so our stingray comes from Thailand, where it is a staple part of the diet in Thailand. The salmon and wolffish come from Iceland, from the tannery that works with the food production industry there. Our ostrich comes from South Africa. It's farm raised for food in South Africa. And our shark comes from Japan, where you may know that shark is eaten in Japanese cuisine. And so the idea that we're trying to do is use natural materials in a modern way, combined with this precious metal in kind of a niche market for us, but these modern techniques to then create these unusual pens. By the way, salmon hide, you might not think of fish as leather. It's the only tannery in the world that does it. But for millennia, the indigenous people of Iceland have been using salmon skin for moccasins. And so salmon and wolffish both are used to make moccasins, belts, backpacks, jackets. It's an unbelievably durable material. I have a little, party trick I do at pen shows when people think it's going to fall apart, because the salmon is very soft to the touch. But I have pieces of salmon hide that I'll hand to the customers at the show and say, well, just go ahead and tear it in half and see, how, and people can't do it. It's really, really unusual. Bill P., I see your question about titanium nib options. Unfortunately, we don't buy the titanium nibs not because we can't do it, only because of minimum purchase requirements, and we don't have enough of a market for it. If you can source a number 6 Bach nib in titanium, though, they'll go right into the pen, no problem. So that is the general overview I wanted to give of the company and our products. And I am certainly happy to answer questions, entertain discussion, anything you want. And let me see if I can make my ugly mug available here too. Who's got a question?
First of all, not a question. Can we all just give Chris a hand of applause? That was incredible. I mean, that was awesome, Chris. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome, Tony. Thank you. I appreciate it, Tony.
My goodness.
Dan has a question.
Well, like Chris said, if there's anyone has some questions, Dan.
Yeah, just quickly, I do appreciate you coming. That was an excellent presentation and a wonderful looking product. I'd love to hold on to one.
A little trouble with the connection. Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Now I can. For some reason, it was
Okay.
it was cutting out on me.
Well, basically, it was a thank you, but I wanted to ask you about the St. Louis Pin Show.
Sure.
Pin. Would you happen to have one handy to show us what it looks like?
I do not have one handy. Jeannie, do you have yours handy?
What is he asking? I'm sorry.
St. Louis Pen Show pen.
Yeah.
St.
It looks
Louis
like-
Pen
Oh.
Show pen.
Yeah, I can grab mine. Well, I mean, this was one of them, the ostrich purple.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, Bill, Dan, was it that you wanted to do see the engraving on it, or?
No, I just wanted to see the pin. Basically, you showed one, but it was it looked like quite a contrast between the upper and the lower part of the pin. I'm just curious what the materials were in that one.
Was it
Here,
the-
let me just, I'll
Is
tell
it
you
the
what.
purple one or is it the Dante pen?
I think it was the blue one with the
Yeah, that one
The
wasn't the St.
fleur-de-lis.
Lis Pen Show version, but that pen was used in the St. Louis Pen Show edition in purple. So that blue green one that I showed, we did that in purple as a St. Louis Pen Show edition. Same exact pen, purple, except the St. Louis Pen Show version had engraving. The cap band has the St. Louis skyline engraved into it.
Yeah.
And on the pen itself, on the clip of the pen, we engraved. Customer could decline this part of the engraving if they wanted, but we made available free of charge. It was engraved in 2 places. So on the cap band, it had the St. Louis skyline, and on the clip, it said 2020, the pen show that wasn't, because the show was canceled, and so they did a makers fair instead, and we participated in it. They had done a special run of ink. They do it every year for the St. Louis show, and the ink was purple, and so they asked each of the participating makers to do a pen inspired by the purple ink. So we had 3 models of pen we made available in that edition. One was in that nano ceramic coating with the twist, and it was done with a purple nano ceramic, violet. The second one was done with snakeskin. We had some purple snakeskin available to us, and we did the cap in snakeskin, and the rest of the pen was solid sterling. And then the final version was the one that Jeannie owns, which is in ostrich hide, which is
I don't know
purple
if you guys
for
can
the
see that.
barrel.
Beautiful.
So it was ostrich hide on the barrel, and then the cap and section are done in silver with a horizontal engraving pattern.
So I made a set because I got the fountain pen with the purple ink, and then this one's the ballpoint.
Mhm.
So
The roller ball.
yeah, the roller ball.
So Dan, does that address what you wanted to see?
Yes.
All 3 of the pens that I mentioned,
Oh no, that's
I'm
great.
sorry, all 3 of the pens I mentioned can be seen on the website.
Okay, great. One other, the skyline, did that include the St. Louis Arch? Do you know?
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, it's a very beautiful. In fact, I can call up a picture of it so you can really see it. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful bit of it shows off the engraving work we're doing. I mean, Frank, just to give you an example, Frank's logo is not a simple logo. It has a scroll and a quill and a bottle of ink, and we fit that and writing on the scroll, on the quill. on the scroll, excuse me. Well, we fit all that on a nib, so you can imagine how small it's the engraving is.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
our logo,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
our logo goes on our nib, and the St. Louis one. So on the cap band, we looked at that as plenty of space to work with. And so we started with various images of the St. Louis skyline and worked from those to create our own design. We actually, for purists of St. Louis, we actually took some artistic liberty, because if you take an actual photo of the skyline, there are unfortunately some skyscraping hotels that block some of the beautiful historic buildings. And so in our engraving of it, we actually removed some of those hotels in order to, you know, show off the notable landmark buildings on the riverfront. And the arch is indeed in the image.
Good. Thank you.
What else can I answer? I'm going to see if I can call up.
I just wanted to add that
I think if you look at the website,
the logo was something that actually Nadine Freely drew for me when I created, you know, the company, and I did my banner and all. And since you guys have done the nibs for me, since I started, you know, decided to start doing nibs, I actually copyrighted the image design there, you know, with me and her. So I didn't want to copy it in the future, you know, because like you said, it is very ornate. It's very nice. And I have FP in there, of course, for Federalist Pens, and I have my logo and the graphic, you know, but I did copyright that to avoid any problems, you know, in the future with that, you know, because you said it is ornate and it is nice, you know. I didn't want to see it overseas somewhere on somebody else's nibs, you know.
I've got a question, Chris.
Yeah.
If someone here or we wanted to order a pen off of the site, I know I've got your number, so I can just call you. But if they were going to order something off the site, is it something that you would have in stock? Is most stuff that I remember you telling me is there's a supply chain kind of slowdown, waiting on material. Is this something that we would have to wait for quite a while if we were to order something out of the basic stock? Did you get blocked?
No, I'm sure that the connection issue is on my end. On Saturdays and Sundays around here, the neighborhood, I think everybody is on. Okay,
Sure.
But I got the essence of your question.
Okay.
So can just wave at me if you're hearing me clearly right now. Good. Okay, good. So what Tony was talking about was a conversation he and I had, and I had this conversation with Phil. Are we good? Okay. The COVID has just played havoc with cargo delivery, which has really been one of the big things affecting supply chain worldwide for all products. We have not had any trouble getting like raw materials. So silver, we're not having any trouble getting. Nibs, there's not an issue with that. The issue that we're having is on getting product that's completed from Italy to the United States to the end customer. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm having fits on a personal level with mail with the US Postal Service. My car currently has expired plates on it because supposedly the Department of Motor Vehicles sent me the new tabs, which never arrived. I've got packages that I've sent to other people that they're just in limbo in the system. So what we've been doing to deal with that is one, like every other website you see in the world right now, just expect COVID-related shipping delays. I'll tell you that it has improved. We made a switch and we're using for our standard delivery service, we're using Swiss mail. We're close enough to the mountains in northern Italy that Swiss mail has service there. And they have been handling things better than the Italian postal service. And we were at a high of a little over 4 weeks for delivery at one point. I had some pens that shipped from Italy a little over a week ago, and they took 10 days to get to the end user using standard delivery. I can speed that up. We just upcharge if the customer wants it faster and is willing to pay. And then what I do is they FedEx to me in my normal shipment, which will come in 2 days to me once it's made, because a lot of our pens are made to order. So if it takes a few days to make and then 2 days to get to me, it might be 5 days from the time an order was placed before I have it in my hands. And then from there, I forward it on to the customer and it gets to them in 2 days or so. But to be honest, I'm not totally sure it's worth the upcharge if we're talking about getting a pen in a week versus getting a pen in 11 or 12 days or something. It's really up to the customer, but I've had a couple of specific needs where someone needed a gift by tomorrow kind of thing. And we'll obviously work with the customer to help them out. But I think I've answered your question, Tony.
Yeah,
Okay.
You
What I
did.
learned about all of this is that cargo that's coming not through the carrier, not through UPS, FedEx, et cetera, the ones that are just standard mail service delivery from any country, I learned that cargo travels in the cargo hub. They travel on commercial flights as cargo. So your suitcases, when you're flying from somewhere, are packed along with a lot of mail and packages. That's how they're able to provide it at an economic price point. And so the reason that all these delays occurred is because there wasn't a lot of travel of human beings going back and forth between Europe and the United States. And so since all those flights were canceled, cargo was just getting stuck at the cargo hub at the airport. That's what was happening.
Amazing.
What else can I tell you about Grifos pens or about I mentioned we did ballpoints. We have all kinds of ball designs. They all international style cartridges, so that you can use a ballpoint, you can use a roller ball, a gel, whatever thing you want. And so we do that same thing in our roller balls. This is a solid sterling plated with gold roller ball. So again, features the same things that were mentioned. This one has the cap band on it that the pen that Larry reviewed has on it. But this is a roller ball. So anything we do as a fountain pen can be done as a roller ball. As you can imagine at the pen shows, I sell one roller ball, and more fountain pens. But for people who want them, it's nice.